Hello fellow Riftbounders, in today's video we are looking at 50 different tips that will help improve your Riftbound game. From beginner ones to more advanced ones, this video is going to have lots of tips that will help anybody who's wanting to improve at Riftbound. This is probably the most ambitious video I have ever done on the channel. I am not sure how long this video is going to be, but I'm excited for it. I've put a lot of effort into this. Please, of course, let me know in the comments, give me feedback, and if there's any particular tips throughout the video that you want to see a more in-depth video on, please do let me know. My background, for anyone who's never watched a video of mine before, is that I used to be a professional FIFA player and coach. Did that for like 6-7 years within FIFA esports. Riftbound was my first TCG, and from there I was not very good in set 1, had like a 40 to 45% win rate. In set 3, I won multiple skirmishes, 80 to 85% win rate, went to Utrecht, did really well on the side events. I've improved drastically. So my channel is all about helping you guys improve, talking about the latest decks, tier lists, news, things like that. So if that interests you, please do subscribe. So I've broken this video down into sections. So some sections are 10 tips long, some are like 5 tips. So you'll see at the top here like fundamentals. So the first 10 tips are fundamentals and we're going to work through them. So one of the first fundamentals in Riftbound is know how you actually win or how you're going to win. So it's first to 8 points, not 7. One mistake I see people do is they go all out crazy, use all their resources and blow themselves out to try get to any points, especially like when they're near the end. They'll get to 7 and then they'll leave themselves vulnerable, and then it allows me to catch up. I see people do this all the time. You are trying to get to 8 points for your opponent, not 7, so always remember that. Every action should be centered around helping you get to 8 for your opponent. One thing that I see people do regularly is that they see a trade where they can use like a big resource like punch first. They use it. Yes, it helps in the moment, but it deramps them, and long term that action's not actually help them in the main goal of getting to 8 first. Consider your play. How is it actually going to help you win? Are you playing something for the sake of it, or is it actually long term going to benefit you? Obviously, a lot of things in card games and Riftbound are situational. As you get better, you'll start to understand the situations better and how to assess things. How can your deck actually cheat points? So one way of winning on Riftbound, the general game is that you can score 2 points a turn. I'm just going to move my mic a little bit so it's not too much in the way. Yeah, you can score 2 points a turn in Riftbound. That is something to bear in mind. However, there are cards that can cheat that. Trinity Force is one example. Does this fit in your deck? Is your deck good at holding? Can you do this to cheat points faster and win the game through that? Check the score every turn. This is something that I've got used to doing. I write notes, I record the score, but when I started playing, there's so often I would be asking my opponent what the score was, and I imagine early on there might have been times when my opponent either cheated and just told me the wrong score. Probably not very often, because I found pretty much everyone in the Riftbound community I've encountered is very nice, but they might have just not known it properly themselves, because people forget to write things down or miss a point. Keeping the score in mind at all times is important because it allows you to play around that. If the amount of times where I've beat people and then I've double conquered and gone from 6 to 8, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you was on 5," and I'm like, no, I can show you the points and I've recorded it, and they're like, "Oh yeah," they would have played totally different if they'd known next turn I could win the game. So that's important to bear in mind. Your opponent's deck plus score should help determine your next move. So if you're playing against an opponent that you know's got a way of cheating a point next turn, like they're playing Swain in Diana, for example, you need to be careful that they might have lethal next turn. Or if you're playing a deck that can be 7-0 down like Aurora and beat you, you need to try score quickly. Deramping turn 2 to gain a point is normally bad. Not 100% of the time, but generally speaking, if you have to use something like a punch first turn 2 to get over your opponent, you don't really want to do this. However, playing a Rengar turn 2 probably is going to be fine. Again, situational. Deramping last turn to win's fine. You can use all your runes last turn, because if it wins you the game's done. It doesn't matter that you've deramped. Assessing the board state, score, and what your opponent may do. Try put your opponent into bad positions. The score isn't the tool that you can use to put pressure on the opponents. Number 3, conquering and holding. Is your deck built to conquer or hold? I see lots of people, and I sometimes make this mistake when I'm playing a deck I'm not used to playing, where what they will try do is they will try, just move the camera a bit, they will make the mistake quite regularly of conquering, which their deck's good at, and then just sitting there and holding. If your deck has no way of protecting itself, no interaction when defending, it's only about having assault, going to a battlefield, getting out and conquering, you shouldn't stay and hold unless you are certain that you can keep the battlefield. Is your deck one that's built around assault? Then try conquer more. You can't use this when you're defending. Is something to think as well about your opponent. Is your opponent playing a deck like red where they can get lots of assault and they can just blow you out? Just because you can conquer does not necessarily mean you should. There are situations in the game where, yes, getting a point is generally always a good thing, but getting that point could mean you lose all your units, you have to use all your resources, and then your opponent can get way more value and just blow the game apart. Consider your cards plus battlefields and conquer hold effects. So, when it comes to it, some battlefields have effects when you conquer them. So like Sunken Temple, for 1 energy, if you've got a unit of 5 might or more, you can draw. Some battlefields like Grove of the Godwiller, when you hold on them for a turn, you get an extra card. So these battlefields, if you calculate the risk that you can hold it, and you're fairly confident you can do that without taking a big risk, you probably should. Do you need that point right now? It kind of comes back to don't conquer just because you can. Sometimes there's times where you're better building value in base. I've seen Prisma, one of the best players in the world, take 4 or 5 turns building value in base, waiting to go in on his opponent. Every battlefield is different. Some battlefields quite drastically change the games, some don't. Aspirants Climb and Arena's Greatest, for those who remember, rest in peace, changed the game drastically. One Night Forgotten Monument, I play Yi. My go first battlefield is Starspring. My friend plays Forgotten Monument, not just because of Yi, I hope anyway. And when I get this first May 2-drop combo on that Starspring and Yi, I can't score and go to 2 on turn 2. So this battlefield changes the game and the tempo quite a lot for me. Should this change your sequencing? So a battlefield like Seat of Power, you should nearly always, if possible, that if you can do it, and you can conquer 2 battlefields in a turn, make sure you conquer the other battlefield and then Seat of Power. It doesn't always work like that, but sequencing can change because of battlefields, because you want to conquer that whilst holding the other battlefield to get a draw. Battlefields, especially if you're not, you should know your battlefields quite well. If you're playing against an opponent and they play a battlefield you're not too sure of, read it and consider what it might do to benefit their deck, what it might do to harm your deck. So if you see a Void Gate, that's the one there, every spell damage does 1 more. Be wary when you're playing against a spell heavy deck that if you go there and you've got a 4 might unit, 1 falling star tick could kill it. Consider how a battlefield benefits you or your opponent, of course. Generally, most decks try to pick battlefields that suit them and hurt their opponents. Adapt if you need to because of the battlefield. So if you've got a battlefield that doesn't allow you to play units there like Rockfall Path, bear in mind that you can only that game use your ambush units on the other battlefield. What does your opponent want? One of the key things that I learned quite quickly in Riftbound is it's great to know your deck and it's great to have a strategy of what you want to do, but you need to consider what your opponent wants to do as well. The amount of times that I see people forget this, make silly errors, and just forget what their opponent can do is crazy. What is your opponent's actual potential strongest player? What are they aiming to do in this game? What are they trying to do? What could they do that could blow you apart? So for me, when I play against Diana, Moonfall is an amazing card that turn 1, she might play a Diana. If she's going second, turn 2. If I play my Master Yi, and then I've got a 2-drop, all it takes is her no energy. She plays Moonfall. If she's got it, and she kills me, ruins the game for me. So you need to play around your opponent's potential strongest turn. What battlefield do they want? Think about the battlefields and how they could affect you. If you're against an Aurelia, you don't really want to pick a fight at Abandon Hall because it's just going to benefit a lot. Consider their energy and what they might do next. If you're playing against an orange deck and they've got 1 energy, they are probably going to want to punch first against you. If they've not, obviously you have to consider how many times they've used it, how many cards they've got in hand, so what the likelihood is. Play around your opponents and try to disrupt them. You can't always play around your opponent perfectly, and sometimes, depending on the game, so you have to take risks, but you should always try to consider what your opponent might be able to do. Accidentally forgot to animate that one. Identify your role in the matchup. Should you be more aggressive or reactive? This can change based on the game state. So certain decks, you need to be a bit more reactive to them. Ezreal is a bit more of a reactive deck. He's not normally going to be the aggressor. He's trying to kill their units, lock them out, and ramp up. Fast decks generally apply pressure. Slower decks try ramp up and control the game, and normally have a stronger end game. Play to your deck's strengths. You can't just ignore what your deck's trying to do, because that's pointless. But you need to be aware of scoring the opponent. If I'm playing against an Aurora deck, I will be more aggressive and try score quicker. Plan your route to victory. How can you score twice in a turn? You can't always do this, but if you can safely do it and not take too big a risk, it is worth doing this. Which battlefield is going to be the best to conquer first? If you've got 2 choices and one of them's Grove of the Godwiller and you can hold it, you should nearly always go there to get an extra draw. Try play a few turns ahead and have a strategy to win. The best Riftbound players will plan a few turns ahead, even more so when they get hand knowledge, but they will try to consider what their next few turns in. From their opening hand, they will have a decent idea generally of what they want the next 3 or 4 turns to look like. What is your lethal play? How are you going to actually finish the game and beat your opponent? Just remembered as well, my webcam might sometimes get in the way. I'll try and make sure. On top of that, Thousand Tail Watcher is a great way to finish the game against most people. If you need that to win the game, don't leave yourself on less than 8 runes so you can't accelerate it. Read every card carefully. I'm at the point now where I've done so many videos, played so many games, I look at all the releases, that it's very rare I see a card that I need to ask my opponent what it does. If you ever get asked by your opponent what your card does, take that as a badge of honor. Ensure you understand how a card works fully. Ride the Wind, quite a simple one, but I've seen people not realise that they can ready a card of it. Most people watching this will probably know, but you can not just move the unit, you can also ready it, and it doesn't count as the move in it doesn't count as it's being ready and exhausted. Pay attention to timings, slow, action and reaction, play around these, learn what cards are slow, what cards are action, what are reaction. So I had won a game earlier where I knew my opponent's hand, I'd used Sabotage, and it was against a Diana, and I knew they had a Gust in hand. They had stupefied my Yi twice, so he was on 2 might. And I went to the battlefield and then was going to use Discipline. And I was like, actually, before my opponent did anything, I asked to take it back. I went back and disciplined in base because then they can't use the Gust on me. If you're in an event and not sure, call a judge. Judges are there to help. Obviously, you don't want to be calling the judge over everything, and you don't want to be that guy. But if you think your opponent's trying to cheat, or you just really don't understand an interaction, or you and your opponent between you can't figure something out, call a judge. They're there to help. Understand when you're ahead and behind. Assess the board state. Do you need to take more risks? Sometimes, I generally am probably in the middle for risk taking. I try not to take too many, especially when I'm winning, but sometimes you need to take them to give yourself a chance. When ahead, you shouldn't take unnecessary risks. Don't tap out of energy unless it's safe to do so and you're not risking your opponent blowing you out. Again, game is first to 8. Don't just, you're not going to get a win because you were 6-0 up and you deramped and your opponent just got to come back. Play around getting to 8 first. Plan your entire turn first. So we kind of talked about this before, and good players will know what's ahead. But when it comes to your turn, you should assess the board state. Try think what is your best play. Then look at the board state again. Look at your cards. And as you get better, this will be quicker. What can you do best with your energy? By planning your turn first, you are not going to then, in the middle of your turn after you've played 2 cards, like, oh crap, I can't actually do this. What can your opponent do in response? Is your turn completely reliant on getting past a defile? if you're playing against green and you're trying to use a card like Primal Strength that you need to get 7 might, and your opponent's got a good chance of having Defy, plan around how you will deal with that. Sometimes I will use my ability in base. So if I went to a battlefield and then it gets defied, I'm not just dead. Whereas if at least I've done it in base and they've defied it, at least my unit just doesn't die for the sake of it. Consider the best way to sequence it. So that's kind of one example I said there. Okay, we're coming to deck building now. Build around your win con. How does your deck want to win? So some decks are built to just locking your opponent out. These are really annoying decks, but some of them are pretty good, where you just try and make your opponents discard their cards until they've got none left. Every card in your deck generally should enable your strategy. You do, especially after game 1, sometimes sideboard stuff in. You're trying to do things that can disrupt your opponent, but your deck should be built in a way that it synergizes well to enable your strategy. Pack of Wonders is an example of how it synergizes well. Bewitching Spirit, you play Bewitching Spirit, you return it with Pack of Wonders, you play it again, and over time you slowly get rid of their hand. Just because a card is good does not mean it's right. I play Master Yi. I never would use Elder Dragon in my deck. Elder Dragon is an incredible card. In a vacuum, just looking at what the card does, it is the best card in Riftbound. But for 12 energy and 4 power, I'm never ever going to be able to get that card played. See, Pack of Wonders there. I'm never going to actually be able to play that card. So I don't just put it in my deck just because it's good. You may need to include cards that can counter your opponent. That's kind of where sideboarding comes in. Understand why you're actually using a card. I feel sometimes people put cards in the deck because they've seen other people use it, but they don't actually know how to utilize it. When you're copying a deck from online, try understand why, how it works. If you're watching one of my deck guide videos, don't just take the deck list and copy it and then moan when you do bad if you don't understand how it works. Listen to how I explain how to play with it. Watch how me play a game with it. Consider what lines a deck can actually take. The more decks you get to try and learn these lines, the more you get to understand the game. So Rengar, for example, there's a line in Master Yi where if I have Charm and Rengar, I can play the Charm, move a unit, play Rengar there, and he gets 8 might. That is a line Rengar can take, for example. Understand how each card is meant for each matchup. Some cards work differently in certain matchups. Sometimes you need to sideboard them out. Know when to sideboard and swap cards in. If I'm playing against a blue-purple deck, I will have all my Rune Runners in. If I'm playing against a deck that barely uses spells, I will take them out. Your deck's curve. 8 to 9 2-drops is generally the base that most decks have. Not every single deck in the game does this. Some, like Aurora, might have a few less options for turn 1, but generally if you have 8 drops or 9, I think 8's where the maths gets pretty good. That is very unlikely you'll brick. 9 even less likely. You've got a good chance at getting a turn 1. Too many high-end cards can ruin your early to mid-game. So if your deck's just loads of high-end cards and you get unlucky and you draw them all, you can just end up losing the game because you bricked. Elder Dragon, amazing card, but in your hand it is probably not doing anything. Establishing tempo early is key. Do you have a deck that when you see the hand in that game, it's got a good tempo, that you've got a next few turns planned out and you're not just being able to play one card a turn and not really doing much? Your curve and deck building should enable your strategy. So Rek'Sai is all about swarm, aggro, conquering, playing more cards quickly. Rek'Sai has lots of cheap units to enable that. Include enough copies of key cards. So you need three copies of a key card in your deck. Purple has lots of great cards that are very situational and matchup dependent and game state dependent. Stack deck is a key card that nearly every purple deck has 3 of, because it just allows them to search for their key cards. Situational cards should be 1 or 2 of. So we're talking like a switcheroo, for example. You don't need that often in a game, but having 1 or 2 can decide a game sometimes. The best decks are consistent. One of the reasons purple's generally been good is because of stack deck. Consistency in the deck's really important. So if you only have 1 copy of a card, you are probably not going to see it. Statistically, you're probably not seeing it again. If you have 3 copies, you're going to be very unlucky not to see it. A sideboard ready to counter. So we need a sideboard that can actually deal with our opponent. If you are not sure what a sideboard is and you're new, sideboard effectively, it was 8 cards originally, it's now 10 cards. This is something you can use when you're playing a best of 3. After game 1, you can sideboard in cards that you want to put into the matchup. Your sideboard should be equipped for problem decks. In Master Yi, I have 3 disarming rakes for whenever I play a gear deck or Aurora. Know your deck's weakness. If you're playing against, your deck should be built to enable itself, but if you're playing against a deck that's really good against yours, be ready to sideboard something in that can help you with the weakness. Don't just put random cool cards in the sideboard that you're never ever actually going to get use out of. Test different cards and see how often they come in clutch. There are cards that are very good against certain decks, but if you never really see those decks and you're barely going to get to use those cards, it's probably not worth having in the sideboard. Every sideboard slot is valuable, and a big part of deck building is having a good sideboard ready to deal with matchups. Mulligan should equal your plan. So a section about mulligans and openings. Your mulligan should give you guidance. You should know from your mulligan, especially as you get better and understand your deck, what you can do from there. I know in my Master Yi deck what I ideally want my mulligan to be. My mulligan needs a 2-drop, but I want it to be a Lonely Poro. So if I see 2 2-drops, I might get rid of 1, but I would definitely not get rid of the Lonely Poro. If your deck needs a key card, mulligan 2. So if we're using a deck like Aurora, you keep any ramp like Catalyst of Aeons or Mobilize, but if you've not got a Dazzling Aurora, you will mulligan the other 2 cards. You will always mulligan if your deck can't function without this card. Keep key cards in the matchup. So if you've sideboarded in a really important card that you need in that matchup, make sure you keep it. If I'm playing against like a Dino, I'll keep Defies. If I'm playing a deck that barely uses spells, I will get rid of them. Plan your first few turns around your mulligan. How is your deck's curve looking? Can you look at your deck and your hand that you've got right now and think the next few turns, I can see what I'm going to do? Consider power costs, whether you can afford to use these cards. So if you've got cards that, say, if I want to play turn, trying to think of a way. If I'm wanting to play a Rengar and I've got 5 energy, it's going to cost me a power, it's going to put me on 4. If I've got a Ruin Runner in hand there, and that's the next card I want to play, I need to bear in mind that I'm going to be tapped out 2 turns in a row. What can my opponent do against that? How can your opening hand work against your opponent? I think Sabotage should have been after the previous one. But like a card like Sabotage is amazing, but generally speaking, you're not going to be able to use it early. So I quite often, unless I'm playing an opponent where I know I need to get rid of a particular card, will mulligan this. Sometimes you want to keep it though, especially if I'm against decks that I know can't stop it. Like Orange, I will always keep Sabotage so I can get rid of a punch first. Mulligan different in every matchup. Identify key cards in the matchup and what your opponent wants to do, and keep. Do you need more units versus a Cool the Weak deck? If I'm playing against Cool the Weak, if I see 4 2-drops, I would probably still get rid of at least 1 against a Cool the Weak deck like Victor. But if I see 3 2-drops in a normal game, I will at least get rid of 1. I will not keep 3 of them. But against certain decks, it's quite vital. What is your normal best hand isn't always the right one for every game. So, a hand, there's a certain, like my ideal hand in a lot of matchups on Yi might be Lonely Poro, Pit Rookie, Defy, and maybe like a Rengar. Or instead of the Pit Rookie, maybe like Rengar, Lonely Poro, Defy, and a Punch First. Just because it's a key, it's really good in that matchup doesn't mean I'm going to keep it. Defy is an amazing card, but I will get rid of it in a matchup where I don't really need to get rid of spells. Avoid hands that can't actually develop. You're winning based on score, value, and tempo. If you don't have any long-term development and you've just got loads of high-end cards, you should be getting rid of some to try build better. If your hand looks like it's too clunky and it's going to be too hard to play around, try Mulligan. This is your chance to fix your hand. Depending on your opponent and the matchup, decide if you can be more aggressive or not with your mulligan. Do you only need 1 of a certain card? So, and a card that's amazing, for example, is the Ferris Forerunner. But If I see 3 of them early on and I've got a way of discarding it, I'll get rid of 1 of them because I'm not going to need 3 of them in a game. Don't keep a card just because it's powerful. Is this... Well, there you go, Ferris Forerunner. If you see this in a mulligan against purple, you probably get rid of it. If you see this against any deck that's not purple, you keep it. Certain cards are weak against certain decks. You need to start understanding that. Part of that is practicing your deck, seeing where cards struggle, learning the colour combos. When can you realistically get value out of a card? If you don't think you're ever going to actually be able to utilise the card even if it's good, you should probably replace it with something else. Prioritise the cards that are actually going to help you win. If you have your 4 most powerful cards, but no curve in your mulligan and no logical plan of where you're going to go, you will probably lose the game. And it's not going to help you then where you're like, oh, well, I had some good cards here. Energy and power. So we're looking at resource management. Energy equals the needed runes open to play a card. So when we look at like Ferris Forerunner at the top left, the white circle with 6 is he costs 6 energy to play. The red like logo underneath is power. Power equals the runes needed to recycle it. So if you played a turn and you had 6 energy and 6 runes available, you could tap them all to play a Ferris Forerunner, and then you'd have to put 1 back to the bottom of your rune pile and you'd be left with 5. So a card like Premonition, amazing that you can draw 3 cards, but no one ever plays this because it costs 3 power to do so. However, with the new Astral Heron, people are starting to maybe play it a bit because they can play it for 1 power. Thank you, Ting Wei Cheng, for the sub. Every power spent equals 1 less energy on future turns. So when you spend a power, that means for the rest of the game, every single turn, you will get 1 less energy. That is really important to consider. Plan your next turns ahead. If you recycle this power, does that ruin your next turn? If you plan next turn to play a Rengar and you use a punch first and it puts you under being able to play him, consider whether you really need to play that card. If it really disrupts your future turns, it's sometimes not worth it. Count available energy. Plan your turn out on what you can do. What might your opponent do in response? We kind of talked about this earlier, but considering how much energy you've actually got, how much energy your opponent's got, managing these resources and being aware of what can happen on a turn is really key, and high-level players do a very good job of this. Defiant Dance. If you're against Aurelia and she's got 1 energy, there's a good chance if she's not used this yet and she's got a few cards, she will have this. Bear in mind that you may have to play around this. Check that you have the energy open for your sequence. Do you have the energy for interaction on an opponent's turn? Don't just use everything to take a battlefield and then leave yourself vulnerable and just ready to die anyway. Plan ahead with your resources. Like we said, don't just spend resources and recycle runes just because you can. Every rune you recycle is 1 you are not getting back for the rest of the game. Try plan your next 1 or 2 turns. So we keep mentioning this, but it's really key. Okay, Riftbound players play around their deck. Good Riftbound players play around their deck and their opponent's deck. The best Riftbound players play around their deck, their opponent's deck, and the next few turns and what both decks could do. I nearly always, against spell-heavy decks, will do everything I can to get this card, the Ruin Runner, down as soon as possible. I will normally sacrifice a unit most of the time and not use power if it means that I can get this card down. If I have to recycle runes and it slows down me getting this card down against spell-heavy decks, I've probably done something wrong. Like I say, you may have to give up some value to get the stronger card that you need down. Make sure you have enough to do a key combo. So if you need to take a battlefield, you need 6 runes next turn to play Rengar and a punch first, make sure you've got those runes. Allow yourself to be flexible. Where possible, keep options open for interactions. You shouldn't just always, no matter what, leave all your runes open just so you can interact with your opponent. You do need to build. It's kind of a balance of building value and making sure from there that you've got enough across your board to play around your opponent. Be prepared for what your opponent might do as well. If your opponent's tapped out, this is brilliant and you can do a lot. You can sometimes force your opponents into spending their resources. If you play this amazing card, like Vilemort is a fantastic card. But outside of Nasus, generally when you play him, you're left with no runes, and then when you play him, he can just get killed quite easily. Baron's the same for this. Don't overcommit. Is killing an Aurelia turn 2 but deramping 4 runes worth it? So I've seen people when I've played Aurelia use Falling Star on me, and they're probably happy thinking, wow, I've killed Aurelia, I've probably won now. Well, you're 4 runes down, you've got 4 energy less for the rest of the game every turn. That is probably going to ruin the game for you. If you have a combo plan that can win you the game, make sure you have the resources ready. Ensure you save resources to interact and play around opponents' potential plans. I will often, especially if I know their hand and I'm playing a green deck, if I know they've got a key card that's defiable, I will let other things go through that aren't as game changing to save it for a key card. So Falling Star, like we say, this is a really good card, and yeah, you can kill key units with it, but if you have to play Deflect, it's probably not worth it. Avoid revealing your plans where possible. So we're talking about sequencing. Good Riftbound players will generally know what you're planning to do, but if you make it really obvious and telegraph it to your opponent, it's going to give them information you don't want them to have. Try gather info on your opponent where possible. Hand knowledge is the best thing you can have, but not every deck has access to this. Try and look at what they're doing. If they've not chosen to draw on something like Sunken Temple and not tap out, probably means they've got a they've almost certainly got a 1 energy option. If one thing that I've noticed, and this generally works a lot, is if I play a spell that could be defied or countered by a purple card, for example, and my opponent takes more than an instant to think about it, it probably means they've got a card that can counter it. They might not counter it in the moment, but it means they've got something in the future. So when your opponent takes time to make a decision, it means they've got the answer. It's just whether they want to use it then or not. Scuttle Crab. I find it silly, but people have this unit, go and do big sequencing, but don't die first with this unit and see the hand. Later on in the game, you can send this unit in, let it die, and see their hand and make big plays. Sequencing around your opponent, what they can do, and what the current board state is will win you games. Sequence around draw effects. If your plan involves cards that draw, do that first. If you are going to use this card anyway at some point in the turn, use it at the start while you've still got more energy, see what you draw and see if that can improve your turn. New info can give you better options, and reassess your plan based on if the new options are possible. You should already have a good idea, and more often than not, it doesn't change things, but there's no point in using your draw later on in the turn when it could have been better earlier on. Don't just waste resources. If an on guard's enough to get over your opponent, use that. Bear in mind what they've got and what they interact with. If you're playing against a deck that's got 1 energy and it can't do anything with that 1 energy, and an on guard will get you above them, then just do that. As you get better and understand the game, you'll start to know that more. If the cost is too great to conquer, don't do it. You don't need to always conquer. Be prepared to change sequencing if the opponent forces you to. Sometimes your opponents will just... I've had it before where they put a hidden card and I just don't have an answer for it. I don't have my defy, I don't have a unit ready for it, and I just have to play around it. Decide when to attack or build value. Okay, yeah. Sometimes it's better to build value in base. Sometimes going and attacking, yes, you might be able to kill them, but you might lose too many units and then leave yourself vulnerable. You would have lost more value in the game, and the value is normally what wins you the game. One thing that I really like is when my opponent taps up, leaves full energy to try and interact with me next turn, and if it's not too late in the game and I can make them lose like 6 or 7 energy, I just play a unit to my base, don't interact with them, they've wasted a turn, and it gives me more value. Save ambush cards where appropriate. So if you've got 2 units you want to play and you can only play 1 this turn, play the 1 generally that doesn't have ambush, so next turn it's ready to move, and the ambush 1 could go to the other battlefield in a combat anyway. Inferno's a good example of this. Don't attack just to score a point, if this could blow you out and you could lose massively and just get ruined for the rest of the game. Trigger effects in the best order. So again, Seat of Power. Make sure when you're playing with this battlefield, if you're going to double conquer that turn, if possible, you get Seat of Power second. If you have 1 counter, save it for the opponent's best card. if you see like a stupefying, it's not really going to change much other than give them a draw. Don't just counter it for the sake of it when they might have like a crazy card that could change the game. See opponent's hand before you do the rest of the turn if possible. So if you have a sabotage in your deck or a decree that allows you to see the opponent's hand, look at before a big turn when you're going to have to sequence and do a lot of interaction. Sabotage first, 1, so you can see their hand, and 2, potentially get rid of something they want to use. Movement and positioning. Give every unit a purpose. Don't play a unit just for the sake of it. I sometimes see people just put units out, and it's like, I've seen people just play a first mate just because they want to, whereas next turn, if they'd have held it, it would have been better. And sometimes they play units and then don't have enough to interact. Think about which unit is better to play first based on its effects. So, if I have 2/2 drops, I will always try play the Pit Rookie second, because the Pit Rookie, if I play it by itself, doesn't get to buff a unit. Whereas if I play it second, it gets to play and buff a unit. If you have a unit with Accelerate or Ambush, save it and play the card that enters exhausted first. Kind of mentioned that before. There will be some overlap on some of these because some stuff kind of relate. Play around movement effects. If your deck has a card like Stellar Corn, how can you maximize that? It kind of comes back to deck building, but how can you make the most of this and get the most of the move effects? Think how you can maximize these effects while being safe. Don't just move to get a draw for the sake of it and die. Position around opponents. Consider kill cards opponents have. So when I'm playing against an Aurora, they nearly always use free Elder Dragon. I will try, where's possible, stack units in a place. You need to try double conquer and score, but if I know that next turn they're going to play an Elder Dragon, I will not just leave my units 1/1/1 and all of them to die. You do have to bear in mind that. Can you counter their spell or protect units? If you can do this and it gives you more value, definitely do that. Is it based on being at a battlefield? So some decks have cards that are very much, Kai's got quite a few of these, where it's at battlefields. Draven tends to like use Void Seekers and Rebukes and stuff. Play around that. If you can get away with not being at the battlefield, sometimes it's worth it. Can your opponent accelerate, ambush, or move from one battlefield to another quickly? So some decks are quite slow. Some decks, if you leave them on 6 points and go back from the battlefield, they might have 2 cards that can accelerate and win the game. You need to play around that. Don't overcommit to one battlefield. This is probably the biggest mistake I made early on. I just saw one battlefield and I was like, you know what? I think that I need to just go here, hold it and win. Normally when you do that, it just leaves you in a shocking position, allows your opponents to just blow you out, kill too many units, and you just lose the game. Don't waste resources purely just to score 1 point. What is your deck's win con? Some decks are meant to hold one battlefield and just bunker down and win. Most decks aren't though. So like a deck like Shen, this is okay. That is what his game plan is. If you can almost guarantee a hold without having to give up too much resources, consider having the other value you've got in your base for the next turn. If you can spread it out and provide a threat for next turn, that's better. Is it worth recycling power for a hidden or not? Is that power D ramp going to make too big a difference? Could you just play that card from hand if needed? What's the benefit of it? Cheat movement. What effects can ready your unit? First mate is a very good one in orange, but if you can cheat movement and get cards moving twice in a turn, this can often win you games. Can your opponent cheat movement? Do they have a card like Ride the Wind that you need to be wary of? Think of how battlefields can affect this. So Star Spring. First mate Star Spring's crazy. With a 2-drop, you can double conquer turn 2. But yeah, think about battlefields and how they might affect this. Combat. Check for combat keywords. Tank. This is one that I still quite often forget. You don't see it too often, but if they massively buff one unit and then it's got tank and you can't kill it, you are going to end up at that point not getting anything and just dying. Assault. Are you playing a deck that's got lots of assault? They might have in their base less might than you, but if you know that they've got spells that can give them a lot of assault and turn the game, you need to play around this. Shield. There's cards that say they get extra when defending. Mutated Mouse in Ivern is an example of this, where quite often I'll go attack, and then it'll say 2 on it because the brush, and then it'll suddenly say 4. I'm like, oh, forgot. Backline, so hide my face again. I've got Pike here. These cards can't be killed or damage assigned to them in a combat until you've killed every other unit. Slow action and reaction. This is something I get asked about a lot. The timings. Slow spells equal only, or just slow effects equal only on your turn. You can only do these, like I say, on your turn. So a card like Falling Star cannot be ever done on your opponent's turn. There are a few very rare exceptions, like if they play Promising Future, for example. But generally speaking, you can only ever do a slow spell on your turn. Action equals on your turn, within reason, whenever you want, or the opponent's turn if they trigger a showdown. So a showdown is where they go to a battlefield and start combat. Or not even a combat. They could go to a battlefield by themselves and it'd be a showdown. If you've got Void Seeker, that is an action spell, you could kill them there and then. Rebuke is another one. If they go to a battlefield and you've not got a unit there, it's still a showdown. You are still entitled to rebuke that unit. Reaction can be played on any trigger that starts a chain, so it's not just during showdowns. You can't play an action card on your opponent's turn if they just play units to base. But if they play a unit that starts a trigger, a chain, and this is a bit more complicated, but maybe a bit more of an advanced video, but then you are able to play a reaction speed spell in reaction, hence the name to it. Chains resolve backwards. The last reaction spell played resolves, then the last spell before it, and so on. So if someone plays a Star-Crossed and then someone plays a Defy, the Defy resolves because it was the most recent card, and because the Star-Crossed has been countered, it kind of just fizzles out. You can't use it anymore. It's kind of just, it goes off the chain because it's been countered. If someone uses an action and then no, you don't have a reaction. So if you get Rebuke played against you and you have no reaction, the Rebuke will resolve. Actions always resolve if no one can react to them effectively. And the same with slow spells. But if someone plays an action spell, that will resolve. You then get priority to do something yourself. So priority and timings. Attackers always get priority first in a showdown. So that includes their abilities. So for example, this Ambessa. If with Ambessa, she's empowered. It says when I attack, kill an enemy unit here with less might than me. This would result before an overzealous fan sending you back because the attacker gets the priority. If you will win the combat anyway and are happy with how it's right now, then pass focus and make your opponent use resources. Don't waste yours and just use them before you get there for the sake of it. Make sure when you pass focus that you are happy, because if you pass focus and your opponent says, okay, great, I do too, then whatever was going to happen will resolve. After one chain has resolved, I'll just move my camera. After one chain is resolved, the next begins. So like I said, if someone does an action and it resolves, then another chain opens up, and if they pass, it goes back to you. Prioritize key units, protect them. Don't give your opponent a free chance to kill your most important unit. So again, a very good example of a deck that this matters for is Aurelia. Don't leave your Aurelia a battlefield with no runes if you can avoid it. Don't leave it just ready to die. Save resources and interaction. You don't always do this. It's obviously assessing the board state. Sometimes you need to build value, but try and make sure you do have enough runes to use your interaction when needed. Damage only heals after a combat. This is something that I still forget sometimes, but if you take damage from a spell interaction and you've not healed then before a combat or showdown happened, then you don't heal until after it. So if you challenge someone and they've got 6 might and you've got 10, you will go into the next combat with 6 damage. So you can deal 10 damage, but you would only have 4 might left of damage. So if you went into a combat with a 4 might unit, you would still kill it, but it would kill you because it would add the 6 damage you'd already taken. Sometimes it's worth a small fight tapping to heal your big unit first. So something I do in Yi, I might challenge. I use Rampage now, but I might use Rampage to kill a unit. My unit might be low health, and then I will send my Skull Crab in to die. A combat's happened, so my unit that used Rampage survives, and then I can go in because it's fully healed. Practice difficult matchups. This is not necessarily fun. Difficult matchups are normally very frustrating, but if you don't know how to play against your most difficult matchups, you will probably lose and then in turn get more annoyed. Learn how to play around them and your options. What can you actually do against them to have a chance of winning? Some matchups are bordering on impossible, like 20% win rates, but most matchups there is normally something you could do. Don't just play easy games just to feel good and win. Beating people you're much better than isn't going to actually help you improve. You learn more from your losses. This is a general statement, but it's very true. Most of the time I've improved the most where I've made mistakes, I've lost, and I've asked people how to can pick up on it. Announce what you are doing. I've played against a few people who play very fast and just do things without saying anything, and you kind of suspect that they might be cheating, or at the very least you're a bit unsure what's going on. Tell your opponent what you are doing. If your opponent knows what you are doing and you're making it clear, they won't think you're doing anything dodgy and just makes for an easier game. This often helps you concentrate more as well. I find when I talk things out and I explain what I'm doing, I start to concentrate more. And if you aren't sure what your opponent did, ask them. Don't be shy. If you're not sure what they've done or you think they did something that's questionable, ask them. If things are unclear and an opponent is still being unhelpful and not willing to discuss things with you and making your life hard, just call a judge over. Again, not very often, but it's worth doing. We've got a little card as well, so I'm going to go the judge one. Write things down. One of the big things that I noticed instantly one of the big ways I improved when I started writing things down, I just more consciously took things in. Doing this helped me be more serious. I don't know, maybe it's just a mental thing, but it just seemed to help. If there is an issue on points, you have it tracked. 95% plus of the time, your opponent, if they've got the score wrong, it will be an accident. Most people are not malicious. Sometimes people just forget to record something. But if you write everything down and track the points properly, and your opponent says they don't think that's right, you can go back and show your opponent where the points are. And if a judge comes over, you can say, this is where the points happen, you've got them written track. Write down hand knowledge if an opponent won't show. I think you may as well just leave hands open. If you get extra hidden cards, then you could shuffle them back in and like hide that in the hand, so to speak. But generally just speeds the game up. But not a lot of people don't want to do this, so just write them down so you know what you're playing around. Don't forget. Make notes after a game. After a game's happened, make sure you take notes about what happened in the game, what mistakes you made, how you can improve from that. This will really help. Challenge TCG, show their little notebook there. It's pretty cool. Preparing for an event. Now this could, if it's going just for a Nexus night, it's not too big a deal, but some of it will apply. If you go into a skirmish, they can be quite long days. If you go into a bigger event like a regional qualifier, which I'm going to next week in Barcelona, you need to prepare. If you are going to be at Barcelona, by the way, from 12 till 1 on the Friday, first day, I'm going to be doing a deck doctor activation with Riot, so it'd be cool to meet you. Take snacks plus water. Snacks and water keep you hydrated and topped up during the day. You don't really have times to go have big meals, so snacks will help a lot. Ensure you have your deck box, a bag, your full deck, runes tokens, dice, playmat, all the things you need to play Riftbound. Most people are nice. Don't be scared about going to an event. Of course, in these videos I mentioned a few potential things that bad could happen, but nearly everyone's nice. That's a picture of me with Zeidenberg and Rossum from Challenge TCG. Really nice guys. All the pros that I met were really nice. I think I had one person in about 15 matches, maybe even more matches I played in Utrecht, who was a bit of a dick, and they were not that bad really either. That's a pretty good ratio. People are really nice and friendly. Notes. Have a sideboard or have sideboard notes written down ready. Don't every time you finish a game and go into the next one have to take 10 minutes doing your sideboard. You should be prepared and know already. This saves time. Have notes for key matchups ready as well, so you can, if you've watched videos and seen how you should play against a matchup, or you just practiced, have it written down so you don't forget it. If something or a card surprised you in a best of 3, Write it down so you're ready for it next game and don't forget. The last 5, learning and improving. I guess that's what the whole video has been about. But review games. Use an app like Riftlight to watch games back. I've done this a few times and I've noticed mistakes I've made. Watching your games back can make a huge difference and really help you improve. Identify the key moments that changed the game. Riftbound at a lower level, you can get away with quite a few misplays. At the highest level, quite often one bad misplay or key moment where you just make a slightly wrong decision can throw the whole game. It's a very high skill gap. Ask your opponent if they spotted any mistakes you made or ways you could have played differently. Again, when I started playing, one of the best ways I improved was talking to my opponents. If you've just beat someone, don't ask them how you misplayed and how you could get better, because they're probably thinking, why are you being like that? You just beat me. But if your opponent seemed okay and they've just beaten you, nearly always they will be willing to talk to you and give you advice. Don't just blame luck. I see people do this all the time. It is a card game after all. You will lose some games because it's a card game and there is random luck. If you brick going second, most decks will just beat you by default then. It happens. So you can accept that sometimes there will be luck, but you shouldn't just primarily blame it on that. There's nearly always, even in games that you were very, very unlucky and lost because of the way you drew and how you bricked. I lost a game once where I was 7-0 up and he had a Vi with 2 Vault Breakers. I just couldn't double conquer. And for I think 6 turns in a row, I drew 2 2-drops. No, sorry, I drew just 2 drops. So I couldn't conquer. I ended up losing again from 7-0. So I needed any of like 3 or 4 cards to double conquer. I just couldn't get it. Does your deck need change and stop you bricking? Is it that you're just getting unlucky, or is your deck in a position where it does brick lots and this is costing you? Find practice partners. Go to locals. Locals are some of the best fun you can have. I've met really nice people at locals. I went to Netherlands with 2 friends I'd made at locals who were really nice guys. And then I'm going to Barcelona with 2 people I've met at local events. Local events are the lifeblood of any TCG. You can get some cool packs at like Nexus nights, and you can make lots of friends. I've made like a WhatsApp group of people I know from locals. I think it's got like 35 to 40 people now. You can find good people to practice with there. Runes and Rift ladder. If you want to play primarily online, Runes and Rift, join their Discord. They have a really good rank ladder that resets every season. Play on things like Rift Atlas, TCG Arena. If you play someone that's good and nice, ask to add them to play again. Playing against people that are good, are hopefully better than you, a quick way to learn. I forgot to animate that. Research other colours first. Learn the key cards in other domains. Punch first, an example. If you don't play around key cards in their domain, there is a very good chance that they will draw them and beat you if you don't know what you're doing against them. Use this to play around your opponent. So if your opponent's got 1 energy up, you probably know you have to be very careful about going to that battlefield. Keep up to date with new releases. So I naturally do this because I'm playing the game at least an hour most days, but across a week, probably 10 to 15 hours minimum. And then I go, sometimes I have like skirmishes and the next night where I'll be playing 30 plus hours in a week. I know the cards really well now. Like I said earlier, it's very rare that I see a card like, what does that do? You do have to play, practice more just to get that. But if you keep up with new releases, watch videos on my channel. I talk about all the best cards, talk about the best cards in certain domains. You see all the new cards that get revealed. You'll be able to keep up. And then last but not least, something I've mentioned in lots of videos, master 1 deck. The quickest improvement you will generally make is by playing 1 deck. If you don't play 1 deck and just keep tossing and turning and going between decks, you will never get really good at a deck. You won't really learn its lines, and quite often you just end up blaming the deck rather than yourself. Annie was the first deck that I played properly. I bought a guide from Diwali, who won the first major regional in the West playing Annie. And not only did I learn better how to get good at Annie, it helped me then once I was decent at Annie to understand the game better, to understand fundamentals. I could start improving as a general Riftbound player as well. Play something you enjoy. Ultimately, this is a game that for 99.9% of people probably you are playing to have fun. Sure, if you go to an event and get cool metal cards and make more money, it's fun and we want that, we want to make money, but ultimately we got in this as a hobby for fun. So never forget that. Thank you for watching. It's nearly an hour. This is the longest video I've ever done on YouTube, I think. Hopefully you've managed to stick with me. Please, of course, give me feedback. There's a card for a metal card I got in Utrecht of Aurelia. Please subscribe. It really helps the channel to grow. I'm putting out daily content for you guys. And if you are interested in individual coaching, message me on X or by email. So my X is just Zelonius. My business email is zeloniusbusiness@gmail.com. I've coached over 600 individuals from beginners to people, top level pros in FIFA. I've already done a few coach sessions in Riftbound. People reached out to me. It's gone really well. And I'm looking to start doing more in Riftbound. So if you're interested, message me and we can discuss further. As always, really appreciate you all. Hopefully this video has helped you out. Feedback's very welcomed. If you want to see more specific videos on certain topics, do let me know. See you guys in the next one. Peace.